Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. Her phone buzzed once, then again. The third time, it was a video. Her husband, kissing someone else, in the hospital where their baby just died. Lila's breath hitched. She barely noticed the murmur of voices around her, or the dull roar of the airplane engine. The seatbelt sign blinked off, and passengers began to stir, but her eyes were locked on the screen. Her chest tightened, a storm raging. Inside her heart, betrayal sharper than any pain she'd known. Suddenly, a sharp commotion erupted near the back of the cabin. A man's voice cut through the murmurs, loud and angry. "Move! Step aside, or I'll make you!" Lila glanced up. A tall man, his face twisted in rage, was pushing past passengers, his eyes locked on a little black girl clutching her mother's hand, trembling. The girl hadn't done anything wrong. She was just scared, trapped in the middle of the aisle. Lila's heart pounded. The man's fury was terrifying. He shoved past people with no warning. Then, without warning, he raised his fist and punched the girl, hard. The cabin froze. The mother screamed. Gasps echoed through the plane. And then, a sudden blur. A man in navy blue tactical gear rose from his seat nearby. His gaze was calm but intense, a silent force ready to explode. He didn't hesitate. He moved with lightning speed, and in a moment the attacker was pinned, his rage swallowed by the SEAL's iron grip. "Everyone stay calm," the man said, voice low but commanding. "This ends now." Lila's mind was spinning. What had just happened? Why? Who was this Navy SEAL? Why had he risked everything for a stranger? Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Another secret to unravel. Her hands trembled. The plane was no longer just a place of travel. It was a battleground, and she was right in the middle of it. Outside the small window beside her seat, clouds blurred past like ghosts. But inside the cramped airplane cabin, something darker had been unleashed. Lila's thoughts raced as the cabin crew hurried to take control. The man who'd attacked the girl was now handcuffed and seated, his face red with humiliation and fury. The little girl, her cheek bruised and eyes wide with shock, clung to her mother. The mother's tears streamed freely now, a mix of fear, relief, and something else, something deeper. Lila swallowed hard. She wanted to reach out to offer comfort, but she felt frozen, like a silent observer in someone else's nightmare. Beside her, the Navy SEAL, his name was Jack, she learned later, sat quietly, eyes scanning the cabin. He looked exhausted, but alert, as if the fight inside him had only just begun. Later, when the pilot's voice came over the intercom, apologizing for the disturbance and saying the plane would be diverted to the nearest airport, Lila felt a cold shiver crawl down her spine. This was no ordinary flight, and this was no ordinary day. Back in her mind, the video from her husband played again. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the unbearable loss of their baby. It was all crashing down on her now, mixed with this terrifying moment of violence on the plane. She wondered, how do you survive when everything you believed in shatters all at once? The question haunted her as the plane descended. As the wheels touched down, Lila felt a strange sense of resolve. Something inside her had shifted. She didn't know what the next chapter held, but one thing was certain. She was no longer just a passenger in her own life. She was ready to fight. The airport terminal buzzed with the noise of confused passengers, murmurs of shock and hurried footsteps. But for Lila, the world had narrowed down to one thing, the message on her phone, glowing like a beacon in her palm. "I know what happened on that plane, and it's only the beginning." Her fingers trembled as she stared at the screen. Who was this? How did they know? Around her, families reunited, phone calls were made, but Lila felt trapped in a cage of fear and questions. The violence on the plane was only the surface of something far deeper. She had a sinking feeling her life was about to spiral into chaos. The Navy SEAL, Jack, stood nearby, talking quietly to airport security officers. His calm demeanor made him look like a man who had faced battles far worse than a crazy passenger on a plane. But Lila sensed something more hidden beneath his steady exterior, a history she couldn't yet understand. Curiosity pulled her closer. "Excuse me?" she called softly, voice shaking. "Are you the man who stopped him?" Jack turned. To her, eyes sharp but kind. "That's right," he said simply. "You okay?" Lila nodded, though her chest still ached. "I don't even know what to say. Why did he attack that little girl?" Jack's jaw tightened. "Racism, hate, ignorance that leads people to do terrible things." Lila's mind flashed back to her own wounds, her husband's betrayal, the baby she lost. She swallowed the lump in her throat. "Did you know that girl?" she asked. "No," Jack said, "but she didn't deserve what happened." As security escorted the man away, whispers floated around the terminal. Some say he's a known troublemaker. They say he's been racist before. Who was the Navy SEAL? A hero or something else? Lila's heart hammered. She wanted answers, and she had a feeling Jack might have them. She stepped forward, voice firm. "Can I talk to you? There's something I need to tell you." Jack studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Let's find somewhere quiet." They moved to a small waiting area away from the crowd. Lila pulled out her phone again. "I got this message," she said, showing Jack the text. "From someone who says they know what happened on the plane, but I have no idea who." Jack's face darkened. "Sounds like someone's trying to send a warning," he said. Lila's mind raced. Was she in danger? Was the man on the plane connected to this message, or was it something else entirely? "Why me?" she asked, voice barely. A whisper. Jack looked at her seriously. Sometimes when dark things happen, the truth is buried deep. But it has a way of coming out, usually through the people who refuse to stay silent. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the main terminal. Everyone's heads turned as a man sprinted past, knocking over a luggage cart. Lila's heart jumped. Jack stood instantly alert. "Stay here," he ordered, but Lila shook her head. "No, I want to know what's going on." They followed the crowd to the security checkpoint where chaos had erupted. A woman was screaming at the top of her lungs. "It's him, the attacker's brother." Jack's eyes narrowed. The man from the plane's past had just turned the situation from bad to dangerous. The brother pushed his way through security, angry and wild-eyed. "I'm not letting you get away with this," he shouted. Security struggled to hold him back, but his rage was unstoppable. Jack stepped forward. "You're not going anywhere," he said, voice calm but firm. The brother sneered. "You don't know what you're dealing with, SEAL." Lila stood frozen, fear mixing with adrenaline. Jack's calm shattered for a moment as he realized this wasn't just an isolated incident. There was a dark history, a family feud, twisted with hatred, secrets, and revenge. And Lila had just been pulled into the eye of the storm. Later, as the airport police took the brother away, Jack sat next to Lila. "Listen," he said. "I don't usually get involved in things like this, but when I saw what happened, I couldn't just stand by." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "I feel broken," she admitted. "My whole life is falling apart." Jack nodded slowly. "Sometimes," he said softly, "it takes losing everything to find who you really are." For a moment, silence stretched. Between them, a fragile peace amid the chaos. But then Lila's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video. The screen showed footage from inside the plane, captured by a passenger's phone. But it wasn't what Lila expected. The video showed the attacker not just punching the girl, but whispering something to her first, something no one else saw, something that changed everything. Lila's breath caught. Jack leaned closer. What did he say? The video was grainy, but the words were clear. "You don't belong here." The girl's face crumpled, not just in fear, but heartbreak. Lila felt tears sting her eyes. This wasn't just hate, it was something far worse. As they sat in that small waiting area, the weight of the truth pressed down on them both. The plane's violence was only the surface. Beneath it was a web of hatred, secrets, and broken lives, and somewhere in that web was a story begging to be told. The voice on the phone sent a shiver down Lila's spine. Cold, distant, and menacing. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. Watch your back, Lila. The truth is closer than you think, and it's about to get deadly. She stared at the screen, heart pounding, the noise of the busy airport, fading into a distant hum. For a moment, she felt utterly alone, even though people surrounded her. Jack looked up from where he was leaning against the wall, eyes darkening with concern. "Who was it?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Lila whispered, still gripping the phone tightly. "But I think they know everything about what happened on the plane. And maybe more." Jack nodded slowly, already calculating next steps in his mind. "You need to be careful. Whoever this is, they're watching. And if they're willing to threaten you, they're dangerous." Lila swallowed hard. "How do you know all this?" she asked. Jack's gaze drifted out the window as if memories pulled him away. "I've seen too much darkness. I've been in situations where silence can get you killed. That's why I stepped in on the plane. I couldn't just watch someone suffer." Lila looked away from Jack, out toward the crowded terminal. Her mind was racing. Flashes of her husband's betrayal, the loss of their baby, and now this growing threat shadowing her every step. How had her life spiraled so far out of control? She felt torn between the urge to hide and the burning need to fight, but there was no going back. Later that night, Lila sat in her small hotel room, phone in hand. The mysterious messages had stopped, but the threat hung heavy in the air. She tried to replay the video of the attack, that moment when the man whispered, "You don't belong here." Those words echoed in her head like a poison, twisting everything she thought she knew about the people around her. Why would someone say that to a child? What hatred could drive a man to such cruelty? The next morning, Jack arrived at her door. "I'm going to help you," he said, voice steady but firm. "There's more to this than just a racist attack." Lila felt a flicker of hope. Then, "Tell me," she said. "What don't I know?" Jack pulled out a small folder from his bag. Photos, documents, newspaper clippings. "This man," he said, pointing to the attacker, "his name is Colin Mason. He comes from a family with a violent history. Racism, yes, but also something darker. They've been involved in threats, intimidation, and worse for years." Lila's stomach churned. Why did he attack the little girl? Jack shook his head. "That's what we need to find out. But I have a feeling it's tied to a secret someone's been trying to keep hidden." They spent the day digging deeper, making calls, tracking down people who had crossed paths with Colin Mason and his family. The more they uncovered, the more tangled the web became. A story of hatred mixed with power struggles, long-buried secrets, and betrayal that ran deep. And then, the biggest shock. Someone close to Lila was connected to Colin Mason's family. Lila couldn't believe it. She thought she knew who her friends and family were, but the truth was a knife twisting in her heart. Someone she trusted was hiding lies, secrets that could destroy everything she had left. That evening, Jack sat across from her in the dimly lit hotel room. "We're close to the truth," he said. "But it's dangerous. They'll do anything to keep it buried." Lila's hands trembled. "Why me? Why did this happen to me?" Jack leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "Because you're stronger than you think, and sometimes the darkest. Pain is what leads us to the light." Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. A new message appeared on the screen. "Meet me at the old pier tonight, alone, if you want answers." Lila's breath caught. Jack's expression hardened. This could be a trap, she nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. "I have to know." Night fell heavy and thick as Lila made her way toward the deserted pier, the sound of waves crashing against weathered wood mixed with the distant hum of the city. She glanced over her shoulder, every shadow a threat. Her heart pounded in her chest, equal parts fear and courage. A figure stepped out from behind an old shipping container. "Lila!" The voice was low, urgent. She squinted through the darkness. "Who are you? Why did you send the messages?" The figure hesitated, then pulled back a hood, revealing a face she never expected. It was her childhood friend, Mara. Mara's eyes were filled with tears. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't want it to come to this." Lila's mind reeled. "How are you involved? What do you know about Colin Mason?" Mara swallowed hard. "It's worse than you think. The attack on the plane was just the start. There's a conspiracy. People with power who want to keep their secrets safe, no matter who gets hurt." Before Lila could speak, footsteps echoed behind them. Jack emerged from the shadows, gun drawn. "Too late for secrets," he said grimly. Mara's face paled. "They're coming for us," she whispered. "We have to move." Suddenly, headlights cut through the dark. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Doors slammed open. Masked men rushed toward them. Lila's heart slammed against her ribs like a trapped bird as she dropped to the ground beside Jack's fallen body. The sharp crack of a gunshot still echoed in her ears, mixing with the roaring chaos around them. Her breath came in jagged gasps, a wild storm of fear and adrenaline flooding every inch of her. "Jack!" she cried, her hands shaking as she reached for him, but Jack's eyes were closed. Blood seeped through his shirt, pooling beneath him on the cold concrete. The world spun. Behind her, Mara scrambled to her feet, pulling Lila to her feet. "We have to move," she shouted. "They'll be back any second." Lila's mind screamed no, but her body obeyed. She couldn't leave Jack, not like this. "Stay with me," she begged, voice breaking. "You're going to be okay." Jack's eyes flickered open, a flicker of steel cutting through the pain. "Run." "Lila," he whispered. "Don't stop. Find the truth. Finish this." Tears blurred her vision. "No, I'm not leaving you." He grasped her wrist weakly. "You have to. Promise me." Lila hesitated, heart fracturing. "Promise." Her voice was barely audible. "I promise." Jack's grip loosened, and his eyes closed for good. Time fractured. Somehow, Lila found herself running with Mara through dark alleyways and empty streets. Sirens wailed distantly. Shadows chased them. Every footstep threatened to catch them, but they kept going. The weight of Jack's death pressed on her chest, heavier than any chain. Her world was unraveling faster than she could hold on. Eventually, they found refuge in an old abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. The stale air smelled of rust and forgotten memories. Mara leaned against the wall, eyes wild but determined. "We have to keep moving," she said. "They know what we know now. They'll come for us next." Lila sank down onto a broken crate, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Why is this happening? What did we get involved in?" Mara's voice dropped to a whisper. "Colin Mason's family isn't just dangerous. They're connected to powerful people, politicians, businessmen, people who want their dirty secrets hidden." Lila's head throbbed. The betrayal, the violence, the lies. They weren't random. They were part of a twisted game. Suddenly, the warehouse door creaked open. Lila jumped to her feet, heart in her throat. A figure stepped inside, hands raised. "Wait! It's me, Detective Harris." Mara and Lila exchanged wary glances. The detective's face was grim. "I've been investigating Colin Mason's family for years. I know you're involved now, but you're not alone." Lila's breath caught. "Can you help us?" she asked, voice shaking. Harris nodded. "But it won't be easy. This goes all the way to the top." That night, under flickering fluorescent lights, Harris laid out everything he knew. Documents, photos, recordings of threats and bribes. The attack on the plane was staged to intimidate a witness, the little girl's family. Lila's stomach Twisted. They're trying to silence anyone who speaks out. Mara's voice shook. And Jack, he was protecting us. Harris nodded gravely. Jack knew the stakes. That's why he acted on the plane. He was one of the few who tried to stand. Up to them. Lila closed her eyes. Jack's sacrifice felt both heartbreaking and heroic. The next days blurred into a whirlwind of secrets uncovered and plans made. Lila and Mara, with Harris's help, started gathering evidence to expose the Mason family's crimes. But danger lurked around every corner. One night, Lila's hotel room was broken into. The window shattered. A note was left behind, scrawled in red. "Stop digging, or you'll end up like him." Lila sat on the floor. The note clutched tightly. Her hands trembled, but inside a fire ignited. They had come too far to stop now. Days later, during a secret meeting with a whistleblower connected to the Mason family, Lila's world tilted again. The whistleblower handed her a folder thick with evidence. "Everything you need," he said, eyes darting nervously. "But be careful. They're watching." As Lila looked through the files, one name jumped out. Her husband. The betrayal cut deeper than ever. Her husband wasn't just cheating. He was involved with the Masons. He had lied, hidden, and helped cover up their crimes. Lila's chest tightened. How could someone she loved be part of this darkness? That night, alone in her hotel room, Lila stared at the ceiling. The past, present and future collided in her mind. She realized the battle wasn't just against the Masons. It was against the people she once trusted. The message glowed coldly on Lila's phone screen. Her husband, smiling and shaking hands with Colin Mason. The caption, "Choose your side carefully, Lila." Her fingers trembled as she stared at the image. The man she had trusted with her whole heart. The man who had betrayed her with another woman was now exposed as a conspirator in the sinister web of lies surrounding the Mason family. A crushing weight settled in her chest. She felt trapped between two unbearable truths: the personal betrayal of a broken marriage and the dangerous, shadowy world she had been dragged into. Lila sank onto the edge of the bed, eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. Her mind raced through every moment, every whispered conversation, every lie she had ignored. Had her husband always been part of this? Had the pain she felt all along been more than just a broken heart? Her phone buzzed again, snapping her back. It was a text from Mara. "We have a plan. Meet me at the old library. Be careful." Lila wiped her face and forced herself to stand. She was no longer a victim. She was becoming a warrior. And she needed answers before she could decide what to do next. At the old city library, dust motes danced in the late afternoon sunlight. The place smelled of aged paper and secrets. Mara was already there, waiting nervously by a secluded table. "I've been talking to Detective Harris," Mara whispered as Lila approached. "We think we have enough to bring the Masons down. But your husband is the wild card." Lila nodded, swallowing the bitter lump in her throat. "What now?" she asked. Mara pulled out a folder. "We expose him publicly, or we use him to get to Colin Mason directly." Lila's breath hitched. "Can we trust him?" Mara shook her head. "Not a chance, but sometimes the best way to catch a snake is to let it think it's safe." That night, Lila sat alone in her apartment, the city lights flickering through the window. Her phone buzzed again, a new message. "Meet me at the docks, midnight, alone." The sender, her husband. Lila's heart pounded. This could be a trap, or her only chance to uncover the truth. Under the heavy cloak of night, she made her way to the docks. The salty air was thick with tension, the sound of waves crashing against rusted ships, a constant reminder of the danger lurking beneath the surface. Her husband stood waiting, his face unreadable in the dim light. "Lila," he began, voice low. "I know I've made mistakes, but there's more to this than you know." She stared at him, eyes cold. "You lied. You betrayed me. You're part of this nightmare." He swallowed hard. I had no choice. Colin Mason has power. Power. To destroy lives. I was trapped. Lila's mind reeled. Was this truth or another lie? Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness. A convoy of black SUVs rolled in. Men in suits stepped out, guns glinting. "We don't want any trouble," one of them said coldly. But Lila knew better. They were here to silence her. Gunfire erupted. Lila dove behind a stack of crates, heart racing. Her husband pulled her down beside him. "We have to run," he shouted. They sprinted through the maze of containers, bullets chasing their every step. Somehow, they made it to a small boat docked at the edge of the pier. Her husband handed her a pistol. "Take it," he said. "You might need it." Lila's hands shook. She looked at him, the man she once loved, now an uneasy ally in a deadly game. The chase ended in a narrow alley where they were cornered. Her husband raised his hands, stepping forward. "Let me handle this," he said. Before Lila could protest, a gunshot rang out. Her husband collapsed. Blood spread across the pavement like a dark river. Lila screamed, tears blurring her vision, but she knew she couldn't stop. She had to finish what Jack started. The next day, Lila met with Detective Harris and Mara. She showed them the pistol, the messages, the photos. "We're closer than ever," Harris said. "But the cost is high," Mara added. "We have to be smart. One wrong move and we lose everything." Lila nodded, feeling the weight of their words. Her life was a battlefield, but she was ready to fight. Lila sat alone in her apartment, the photo of her late baby trembling in her hands. The smile, frozen in time, seemed to reach out to her, a fragile reminder of all she had lost and all she was fighting for. The note beneath it sent chills down her spine. "We're watching. You'll never be safe." She wiped her tears, breath steadying. The threats, the betrayals, the pain. They were part of the journey, but not the destination. She was no longer the woman shattered by loss and lies. She was a survivor, a fighter. And tonight, she would finish this. The plan was set. With Mara and Detective Harris by her side, Lila prepared to expose the Mason family and the dark network protecting them. They had gathered evidence, recorded confessions, and identified corrupt officials who had sold their souls for power and money. But the biggest surprise awaited her. That evening, in a dimly lit underground parking garage, Lila confronted her husband. He was alive, saved by a secret ally within. The Mason family. His face was pale, guilt etched deep into every line. "You should have died," Lila said coldly. He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Lila. I never wanted this. I wanted to protect you." She shook her head. "You were protecting yourself." "At what cost?" He looked away, ashamed. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps filled the garage. Detective Harris and Mara appeared, flanking Lila. The husband's face paled. "This ends tonight," Harris said firmly. "We have everything we need." The next days were a whirlwind. The evidence was sent to the authorities, news outlets, and online platforms. The Mason family's empire began to crumble. Politicians resigned, businesses were investigated, and Colin Mason was arrested in a dramatic raid. But the victory was bittersweet. Lila stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean, the wind whipping through her hair. Mara joined her silently. "It's over," Mara said softly. Lila nodded. "No, it's a new beginning." Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find who you really are. Lila smiled, tears in her eyes. She had lost so much, her baby, her marriage, her peace, but she had found something stronger, herself. In the weeks that followed, Lila dedicated herself to healing, volunteering with survivors of violence and injustice, sharing her story to give others hope. Jack's sacrifice, her journey through betrayal and loss, had transformed her. One afternoon, as she walked through a bustling park, a little girl ran past, laughing. Lila caught her smile. Innocent, bright. She thought of the girl on the plain, the one who had suffered so much, and she made a silent promise. To fight for those who couldn't. To be a voice in the silence. To keep walking forward, no matter the darkness, the end.